Hey everybody, Akash Inti, your favorite reflection of you, talking about biotech and pharmaceuticals today. Today we're going over what are clinical endpoints. We'll first define what the term means in and of itself, and what are readouts that are common specifically in oncology and cancer. As always, if you guys enjoy this, like, comment, subscribe, and share. We are looking to get this content out to as many people as possible to educate them, entertain them, and inform them on all things healthcare and lifestyle and wellness and whatever you want to take from this. Awesome. So, what do we mean by clinical endpoints? First off, in a couple prior videos, we've talked about what a clinical trial is. And so I will encourage you to refer back to those prior videos as to what does a clinical trial do. As a quick refresher, in a clinical trial itself, oftentimes, or companies and or investigators will be testing for, as we know, safety and efficacy. Typically, earlier trials are for safety, while later trials are for efficacy. The way that a investigator or company will assess if they have hit efficacy or safety. In other words, if they've actually achieved and attained a certain level of safety and or efficacy of a drug, is they'll measure this by an endpoint. In other words, in order for the investigator or company to say that we have achieved our goal of safety, aka saying that this is a safe drug, they need to measure some reading within the body, or some type of clinical measurements. In other words, you need to be able to measure something in terms of a person's body to ensure that it's safe. So what's one way of doing this? Well, for cancer drugs, they will often look at the specific endpoints, maybe dose limiting toxicity. In other words, what is the highest dose that I can give this drug without it being toxic? Now, toxic could be defined in a multitude of ways, many different ways. It could be that a drug is toxic if somebody ingests it and has an adverse event. And we'll go into adverse events in a future video. But that's one measure of safety. A measure of efficacy, an example of this specifically in cancer, might be something along the lines of progression-free survival or overall survival. Quick jump into what is progression-free survival. Progression-free survival means that a patient is no longer progressing on their cancer. When I say progressing, it means that the cancer is not increasing in size. So that's progression-free survival, and obviously the patient continues to survive. Overall survival refers to what is the overall period of time that a patient has survived whilst taking the experimental drug, and what is that time period? What is the duration of that time period? As we all know, everyone dies at some point in life, as is the case with cancer patients. However, that time of death, that window, that overall survival window is super important for getting an understanding of, well, is it more likely that patients will die faster or slower when taking this drug? And faster or slower as compared to whatever the standard of care is, so whatever's on the market, typically chemotherapy, at least in cancer specifically. But it could be some other type of therapy as well, some other type of targeted therapy. So this is a quick little rundown, as mentioned earlier, as to what are clinical endpoints, and what are some common clinical endpoints that are associated with of safety and efficacy with a specific focus on oncology. Again, as noted, these are super important ideas to be aware of as one delves deeper into reading clinical trials, and wants to simply get a better understanding of what's going on in the space of new therapies in terms of cancer. What are the new